Live from Brooklyn, welcome to the SYCK podcast, starring Alan Stein, where he steers your career with Kadima. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of introducing a host that is about to embark on an epic series that's going to change the way you accelerate. And I have accelerate in quotations. Alan, is that accurate?
That is correct, Russ. We are ready to accelerate some careers. That's hopefully what's going to happen here, because I'm investing lots of time and effort to develop a podcast, and I'm not here to talk to myself.
So tell everybody what this podcast is all about.
Sure, Russ. So I am a huge podcast junkie. I love podcasts. I go for walks multiple times a day. I listen to Tim Ferriss. I listen to John Lee Dumas. I listen to Pat Flynn. I listen to Angela Duckworth. I listen to Freakonomics. I love learning. I love hearing good guest speakers, good interviews, good insights. And I've learned tons throughout my career. And I've created this podcast to communicate some information, insights, and advice for people that are looking to accelerate their careers. That's always been a passion of mine. I've held 29 jobs in my life. I've worked for 21 different companies. I am now on my 6th distinct career, and it's something that, for better or worse, or happenstance, I happen to be a pretty good subject matter expert in. So now I'm looking to leverage my learning, talk to some fantastic guests that have had amazing careers, have had rejections and failures, and sharing that insight and sharing some SYCK advice with the podcast listeners here of the Steer Your Career podcast.
So, Alan, I'm sure the audience wants to hear a little bit about your background, where you came from and how you got to this point.
Yeah, Russ. So I was born in New York City and then quickly was taken to Long Island, where my parents raised me. And I was there for 18 years. And I was fortunate enough to be born and raised in suburban Long Island, pretty safe neighborhoods, good education, good support background. And that was where I got my upbringing. And that's where I also landed my first job at the ripe old age of 14. And through the course of my 34-year career, and I count my career going back to my first job at Waldbaum's, a grocery store in Long Island, I have worked at 21 different companies, 29 different jobs. I've had 6 distinct careers. And for happenstance or luck or just still looking for the path that I have finally found, I have just been able to meander, explore, and really learn to grow and accelerate not just my career, but accelerate my compensation throughout my career journey.
So what you're doing now is a far cry from Waldbaum's.
This is a far cry from Waldbaum's. Although I did enjoy that job of scanning groceries and taking out groceries to the parking lot and get tipped sometimes a couple of bucks from the customers. But yes, I am no longer bagging groceries. I'm no longer scanning groceries. Now I am focused 100% on accelerating careers.
Alan, I love it. So what made you start with Kadima and the SYCK podcast? What got you evolved into that level of where you're at now?
Great question, Russ. So a lot's happened between 1988 and today, and that's when I had my job at Waldbaum's. Throughout the last quarter century of my career, I have worked at some fairly large organizations, originally as an individual contributor, and then I grew my career to become a people leader and a manager. And throughout that tenure, I became a manager at American Express, where I was a marketer and focused on customer success. I had the opportunity to work at still my favorite company that I've ever worked for, Google. I was there for 6 years, where I hired and developed and grew talent there. In fact, I was not a recruiter at Google. I led operations teams. I led global support teams, but I was always passionate about recruiting. And I always raised my hand to volunteer for recruiting endeavors, whether it was getting involved with Management Leadership of Tomorrow or on-campus recruiting with Columbia Business School. And I also happened to hire and build teams over my 6-year career at Google. One year, I was tasked with growing my team, doubling the size of my team from 40 people to 80 people. And these were mid to senior level professionals that I needed to hire. And throughout that course of that year, I was an interviewing machine. Even though I was not a recruiter, I interviewed 225 people over the course of that year. It was number 2 across all of Google. So I became very skilled at interviewing and assessing talent. And also throughout my career, I've really enjoyed growing and developing talent once they were inside the organization. So I was at American Express, began to become a leader there. Went to Google. I evolved and got promoted as a leader there. Really wound up building and growing teams. I took that knowledge and experience to a couple of startups. And from those startups, then I went to Facebook, where I also was very focused on recruiting. And at Facebook, it was when I was first really taking a focus and a deliberate approach at building diversity on my team. And Facebook had a good rule at the time. They still employ it, called the diverse slate approach. It's kind of like the Rooney Rule, if people are familiar with the NFL and the rules in place to try to increase the diversity of head coaching talent there. But through some of Facebook's efforts and tools and emphasis on diversity, I was able to increase the diversity of my team in the course of a year and a half from 40% diverse to 86% diverse. And I define diversity the way the big tech companies define diversity, which is Black, Latinx, women, differently abled, military vets, members of the LGBTQ community, Indigenous Americans. So I saw the power of diversity. I saw the opportunity and the immense pipeline of talent there. And I was able to grow and build diverse talent at Facebook. I left Facebook after a year and a half and took that knowledge and insight and went to Tableau, which eventually got acquired by Salesforce. And within Tableau, I was underwhelmed with the focus on diverse recruiting. I would often approach recruiting and ask them how I can find more diverse candidates. And they essentially told me to go find them myself. They, in fact, gave me a LinkedIn recruiter license, which costs about $10,000 per head. And they said, go find the talent yourself. So I did go out, I did find that talent, but I was continuously perturbed with the lack of focus on hiring diverse talent. So continued my career at Tableau, which became Salesforce, and I started to really think about, after the George Floyd incident, after my wife was reading the book by Ibram Kendi, How to Be an Anti-Racist, really thinking about what I can do to take an active approach to helping level the playing field a bit in terms of representation. And I realized I was good at recruiting and hiring and guiding people into roles. I was very effective at helping people get into Google, getting into American Express, getting into Facebook, and also companies that I didn't work at. So I was skilled at this. I was passionate about providing opportunity for underrepresented, underestimated, underpaid talent. And in July of 2020, I started a company with a focus on accelerating careers. And my goal is to accelerate 1 million careers by 2040. And I have a ways to go, but through this podcast, where I will be interviewing tons of talented individuals, people that have seen inside baseball, the inside operations of recruiting, that will tell the truth about how recruiting works, how career paths work, how career decisions have been made correctly by individuals, and mistakes have been made. My intent for this show is to really uncover and share stories about people that have succeeded in their careers, mostly in tech, which is a space that I'm most passionate about, and also the space that pays and compensates people the most. But frankly, my hope for the SYCK podcast is to help steer people's careers in whatever direction that they want. And a big part of that is leveraging a growth framework that I have developed over the course of my 29-year career working at all these companies. I've kind of boiled it down to an operational formula about how to most effectively and efficiently steer your career, guide your path, and accelerate your career so that you earn more money, you get better work-life balance, you're excited about the job that you want to work, that you work at, you like working with people, and you don't dread waking up on Monday morning to go to a job at a company. My belief is that career acceleration is something that can be learned. People can grow and develop that skill. And if they take an effective approach, they can get tons of amazing opportunities. Throughout my career, I have been able to work for the New York Mets. I have been able to go to the grand opening of the Bellagio Casino and shake hands with Muhammad Ali. I was able to go to the Atlantis resort opening in Bahamas. I was part of Google when we closed down Disneyland for the day, and we just took it over with Googlers and had an awesome time. So these things are all achievable, and there's nothing special about me. I'm a firm believer that people are kind of the sum of four different characteristics. One is privilege. So what you were born with, like the zip code that you were born into, is a big factor of success. If I was born in perhaps a sub-Saharan African country without internet connection or without access to the education that I had, my life would have been extremely different. So it's a function of privilege. Then there's a function of luck. And I've been extremely lucky in my life. I've had opportunity come to me just because I was in the right place at the right time. And then there is talent. So I'm a firm believer that if people play to their strengths and play to their talents that they are either given or attracted to or just grok onto pretty quickly, that talent can be leveraged for success. And then the biggest factor that overrides the privilege and the luck and the talent is effort. So I'm a firm believer, I'm a firm supporter of Carol Dweck, who talks about the growth mindset. And I do believe that people do not have a fixed mindset, can take an approach, can learn, can grow, and can learn to create opportunities, to identify opportunities, and to achieve those goals. So that's a bit of a long-winded answer, Russ, and hopefully you're getting paid by the hour.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. So Salesforce, Google, Facebook, let's not forget Wallbaums, of course.
Yeah, Wallbaums, yeah.
But one thing I did want to ask you, would you agree that there's a lot of career-oriented podcasts out there?
Hell yeah. So there are tons.
So what would you say makes yours stand on a level of its own? Why should people listen to you?
Great question, Russ, because I'm so witty and engaging. But outside of that, I try to break things down as it really plays out and separate the BS and the politics and talk about how it is. So the fact that people are applying to jobs on LinkedIn and Glassdoor and Indeed, it can be effective, but that is not the most effective way to get a job. There's better ways, there's better sites to apply for the job. The fact that people feel like their lack of network prohibits them from getting a job at Google or Salesforce or Microsoft or Amazon, you can develop those relationships, you can build those relationships, you can build those networking skills, and you can leverage those connections to get you jobs. And it's not about using people, but it's about building relationships that are mutually beneficial. And 24 out of my 29 jobs in my career have come because of who I knew and not what I knew. And part of that was, again, going back to the privilege and the luck. But part of that also was effort of me identifying the right people at the right companies and reaching out to them. I also am maniacally focused on efficiency and effectiveness. So I will be someone who is adamant about telling people not to invest time in cover letters. It's a big effing waste of your time. I have looked at 10,000 resumes in my career. I've interviewed 2,000 people. I have hired 200 people. I've probably read about 10 cover letters that people have submitted. I don't look at them, and it's not just me. When hiring managers are looking through applications, they're making a 6 to a 60-second decision, and they do not have time to read cover letters. So what I do, I break down the truth. I tell people specifically how to get jobs, how to do it effectively and efficiently, and how to increase their compensation. And I know compensation is not the end-all, be-all, although I do believe in something that Eric Schmidt used to say during my time at Google, that revenue cures all known problems. I think that's a little bit generalistic. I don't know if revenue would have cured the pandemic right away, but I do believe that the money that people earn, the compensation and the salary, and it's more than salary, but the compensation that people earn is an indicator of what that company values you at. And if you are not being valued fairly, there are plenty of other companies, plenty of other opportunities that will help give you the value that you deserve. So what I'm trying to do is, by the interviews that I conduct, by the people that I have on the podcast, by the tips that we share, we're trying to keep it real, tell the truth, help people land great jobs at the world's best companies efficiently and effectively. And if I do that, then I can rest well at night.
Alan, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So let's give your audience right now a taste or kind of a preview of what types of episodes you're going to have for them in the upcoming ones.
Awesome to share, Russ. People like different sort of themes, different sort of formats. I like that also. It kind of shakes things up a little bit, keeps things interesting. So there will be a few different sort of formats and themes of the podcasts that we record. So there will be several long-form interviews where I'm talking with people from Salesforce, from Google, from American Express, from Amazon, from amazing companies, and talking about their career journeys, their wins, their defeats, and the advice that they have to give to our audience. Then there's going to be episodes that we call SYCK Tricks. And these are going to be episodes where we condense a lot of this SYCK advice that people are giving, this career advice, this guidance, and breaking it down and condensing it. So for people to just grab on the fly, just some great words of wisdom that will help accelerate their careers. Another podcast type that we're going to have are jam sessions. So there are sessions that I hold quite regularly where I invite people in. It's kind of like an Ask Me Anything, but we just talk about the real opportunities, the real challenges, the real way that recruiting works. And I take live questions and I respond, and we will break some of those great questions down and share that with listeners so that they can learn how to land these great jobs at the world's best companies to accelerate their careers. So, and we'll be experimenting with some other type of episode designs as well. We're going to be taking listener calls in and answering your calls on the air. So we're just going to continue to iterate this podcast to meet your needs as a listener, to help you accelerate your career, to help you efficiently and effectively land great jobs at the world's best companies.
I think your audience is going to benefit big from this podcast. Hey, thanks everybody for listening to the SYCK podcast. You can connect at syckpodcast.com. That's SYCK. You can even leave an audio message for Alan to get started on steering your career with Kadima. We may even play it on the show. You can also type out a message as well. Alan, give us a little preview of what else your audience can find on the website.
Awesome, Russ. We are going to share tons of free content. So what you will see up there right now is the growth blueprint. And what the growth blueprint is breaks down our 6-step process that will help you land great jobs at the world's best tech companies. And what growth stands for is goals. We will share with you how to effectively think about and set your goals. R is to realistically assess your strengths and think about how to play to your strengths to land that job you're seeking. O is outreach. We're going to teach you how to reach out and build authentic and mutually beneficial relationships. W is work the system. We will share with you specifically where to look for jobs, when to apply, what sort of roles you should be applying for. T is for training and tenacity and preparation for the interviews. And once you get to those interviews, you will need to be in the right mindset, the right preparation so that you can ace those interviews. And H is high impact negotiation. So when you get those offers, you will have the confidence and knowledge and insight so that you can negotiate for more. So there's tons of stuff that's going to be up there at syckpodcast.com. Check it out. We're going to be putting more and more information out there. And don't just download stuff. Don't just take stuff from us. Please give us your feedback. Drop comments. Drop your audio questions, and we will respond to them.
All right, and don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. That's syckpodcast.com. It's SYCK. And we hope you enjoyed the episode. You're going to love the next one.